Good evening, everyone. That beautiful tune is called Gratitude and Flannel Dreams. The composer is Amy Engelsberg. Band is Wake Up Robin. The musicians are Audrey Knuth, Andrew Van Nordstrom, Noah Van Nordstrom, and Amy Engelsberg. The album is Wake Up Robin, and you can buy it at Bandcamp and buy on first Fridays. Bandcamp waives their fee, and the money goes to the musicians. So that's this Friday. Everybody wants to get on there and get their favorite albums. So I'm Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. On our team, we have Lindsay Verbal assisting with the program, handling media, all our behind the scenes things, our attendee questions in the after talk, all sorts of great stuff. She's our Zoom expert. Reed Wilson is monitoring Zoom for questions and posting. Thank you, Reed. Glad you're with us. And Larry Hansen is monitoring Facebook live chat for questions and posting. Yay, Larry. Oh, where's Larry? Where's Larry? Oops. Well, he's out there someplace. I know he is. I'm not sure what happened, but anyways, you'll see him in the after talk. We invite you to ask. There he is. We invite you to ask questions in the chat boxes on both platforms, and we will get to as many as possible during this web chat. Maybe there's a lot to talk about, or in the after talk. So stick around. At the end of this session, we will be posting the link to the after talk. If you registered in advance for the Zoom, then you already have that link, and you could just go there from that. Thank you, and happy anniversary to Karen Axelrod and friends for the In the Moment concert that brings joy every Tuesday to our lives. Thank you, and I love the balloons. So that was great. All right, let's jump into a bio on our guest. Audrey, this is really interesting. If I didn't know this before, Audrey Knuth grew up in Honolulu and then studied fiddle at Berklee College of Music in Boston and spent years exploring the New England folk scene. She now resides in California, which we are very happy about. Bands she belongs to include the Free Raisins with Jeff Kaufman and Amy Engelsberg, the Gaslight Tinkers with Joe P. Fitzpatrick, Garrett Sawyer, and Peter Siegel. The Audacious with Larry Unger, and Wake Up Robin with Andrew and Noah Van Nordstrom and Amy Engelsberg. In normal years, she tours extensively around the US and Europe and gives concerts and plays for dance events all over the place. She has taught at many camps, including English Week at Pinewoods, Ashoka Northern Week, Bay Area Country Dance Society, American Week and Heydays, Halsey Manor, John C. Campbell Folk School, Country Dance and Song Society, Timber Ridge American Musician Course, Ogant's Camp Cavell, plus festivals such as NEPA, Dance Flurry, Burning Man Contra Camp. Of course, she was at Burning Man, Falcon Ridge Folk Festival, and many more. When the pandemic came and Audrey could no longer tour, she created a really great online class for dance musicians called Tunes and Stuff. This class dives deeply into one tune each week to figure out all its interesting possibilities. Audrey and her friends also host the twice a month online Contra Jam. Hardworking member of our dance community. Please welcome Audrey Knuth. We're happy to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm glad that I was muted while you were reading that bio because I couldn't stop laughing. I am very happy to be here. Thank you, Darlene and Lindsay.
Well, we're going to jump right in because there is a lot to talk about, of course. So I love it. Thing one, Audrey who? New England to California.
Audrey who? What? I promise I will do my very best to take myself seriously during this hour. But kind of thinking about where do you start, or what life path do you have to take for one to end up in the position of myself where I like consider myself a full-time folk musician, specifically a full-time dance musician. And it, I have to say, not everyone ends up in this position, and I feel so lucky to be where I'm at in my life, and I really can't imagine doing anything else. I've thought about it, trust me, I've thought about it before, but here I am, and again, just feel so grateful. And I'm really happy to be able to share with you some of my thoughts today. So that first question that Darlene asked, Audrey who? It's Knuth, in case you were wondering how it's pronounced. If you say it anything else, that's also fine. But yeah, let me just kind of get a start of kind of where what happened, Audrey? Growing up, I have to say the person I blame the most for where I'm at today is my dad. And that I was very fortunate to grow up in a very musical family where listening to music was more important than watching TV. And my dad, at a very early age, I think 4 or 5, my parents sat me down. They're like, Audrey, you're going to have to learn an instrument. And what's it going to be? Like, it wasn't, would you like to play an instrument? It was, what instrument do you want to play? And so luckily I picked the violin, and I remember as 4 or 5-year-old Audrey, my dad, what I thought was him waking me up in the middle of the night to go to my early morning Suzuki violin lessons. It was like 7 or 8 in the morning, but it still felt like I was being woken up in the middle of, of the night, to do it. And so I grew up playing classical music, doing the Suzuki method. But also my dad, again, like being a lover of all musics, we used to have this thing called Sunday music night or family night on Sunday nights. And it's something that I will forever remember and really appreciate, that every night my dad would pick a topic and we'd sit down as a family and learn about it. And so it would be anything from a classical composer to a genre of music, name that tune. It was just this really great opportunity to learn and just kind of be more open to other genres of music. I still listen to the Spice Girls. I won't deny that fact. And I won't deny the fact that I made my dad buy me the Spice Girls CD when I was in the 1st grade. So thank you, Dad, for that. But just being music a part of my life, especially when I was a young kid. And then move on to Hawaii, where you imagine that there is no folk music whatsoever in Hawaii, or, Celtic or English dancing or Contra dancing. I found myself actually with an Irish dance school, and kind of how I got into the dancing part of it. Was Jig the School of Irish Dance of Hawaii, and learning Irish dance that way. And I have a very distinct memory of, on St. Patrick's Day, what our Irish dance troupe would do is we would go to each hotel on the strip of Waikiki, and we'd do our little 10-minute dance with the Scottish band of Hawaii, the Scottish pipe band, like you do in Hawaii, obviously, right? And played one gig, and a couple of musicians approached me afterwards. I neglected to say that during our little 15-minute presentation, I would take my violin out for one piece, and I think I would play the Irish Washerwoman. I'm not quite sure what tune, but a very standard tune. And hopefully I didn't have the music, but I wasn't reading the music, but I played this little tune. And after one particular concert or event, had some musicians corner me and say, "Now, Audrey, have you heard of this thing called Contra dance?" Contra, what? What are you talking about? And comes to find out, there is a very small but very supportive Contra dancing community in Hawaii. And after that one day, I was hooked. First and third Saturdays of every month, I found myself playing with the local Contra dance band called Whiskey Starship. And so, yeah. Yeah, and I have to say, I had my brother and my sister growing up, and they both, we all kind of grew up playing music. And my brother, quick side story, ended up playing the erhu, which is the Chinese violin instrument. He lived in China for a little bit and became very well known where he was for being that white boy who played the erhu. But we were a very unique family indeed. So I got into contra dance that way. There was no English dancing in Hawaii. I actually don't think I knew quite what it was at that point. But actually, roughly around the same time, my dad, who was still living in DC at the time, also kind of discovered contra dance. And so when I would visit my dad during the summers, he took me to the Glen Echo Open Band. And I don't know if you guys know what it is, but I think it must be the biggest and longest running regular open band contra dance. I think it's the first Fridays at Glen Echo, and you have 40 or 50 people on stage, and usually be run by Steve Hickman, who all I can say is just YouTube Steve Hickman if you don't know who he is. And watching him play and his energy on stage really kind of was really ingrained in my head of like, that's pretty cool. So fast forward. Oh God. Okay. Fast forward. I'll be quick. I moved to Boston. I moved to Boston to go to Berklee College of Music. I knew that Berklee had a non-traditional music approach. It was kind of originally a jazz school, but they really encouraged folk music in the string department. However, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I actually got my degree in audio engineering because I promised myself that I would not, in fact, be a full-time musician, because who would do that? That's crazy. That's not stable. I want to have a practical job. So I knew that music was a big part of my life, but that I also wanted some stability. So I figured getting some technical skills in my life wouldn't be a bad idea. And I have to admit, during the school time, there were months where I didn't pick up my instrument. And I would like pick it up if I had to, or like quickly, if I had an exam that I had to play something, I would not practice until the very last minute. And I really kind of focused my energy on that career path. And somewhere along the line, someone mentioned to me that MIT, right across the Charles River, MIT had a regular contra dance that was sit-in friendly. And I don't know who invited me, because I would not go on my own. It's not the kind of person I am. And somehow I got convinced to go without knowing anyone. I'm not even quite sure. I wish I remembered. But some of the first people I met was Julie Valamont, Max Newman, Jeff Kaufman, just really incredible, open people. And through there, kind of the Free Raisins were formed, and kind of went from there, and kind of all by accident. The Free Raisins being a band and doing dance weekends, it wasn't this life plan, like I said, and just kind of happened, which is really great. And from there, I was able to go to Pine Woods, and I went actually on the youth scholarship. I don't know if you guys know Marcy Van Cleve, who is the executive director of the Folk Art Center in New England. But I did what one calls the gig from hell, that maybe one day I will share a story, but she was the caller in the band, and it was like the worst gig on the planet. And I remember being like, well, she's never going to talk to me ever again. I guess that's that. Like, there goes that. And I got a phone call the very next day from Marcy, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to we're going to talk about this gig and how awful it was. But she called me and invited me to be a youth a scholarship for the Labor Day camp. And if you guys know about the Pine Woods Labor Day, it's English, contra dance, and international. So on like a week's notice, I was like, I've never heard of Pine Woods, but sure, I'll go. What's the worst that could happen? And it was mind-blowing. And it was the first time I got to English dance and international dance. And it was just such a magical experience. And I had contra dance, but being exposed to the broader music community and what else was out there other than contra dance, I think was a huge, huge thing for me. So from there, I ran sound a couple of times at Pine Woods for their ESS, English Scottish Week. And then I ended up moving to Jamaica Plain, which was right down the street from the LCDF Contra Dance, their hall, where they have contra dance and English dance. And I believe every other Tuesday they had an English dance. And the musicians would play for free, but it was the perfect spot for me to kind of get my chops, I guess is the way of putting it. And I got to play with incredible musicians in Boston. Like, no one knew who I was, but I was willing to play for free. And just being there and working with Bruce Rosen and Sue Rosen and just meeting all these incredible and feeling in a safe place to be able to practice what it's like to be an English musician. It was really, really great. One of my favorite stories about playing for that dance, I don't know if you guys know who Marnin, I think his last name is pronounced Lebo Kozer, but he's a violinist and piano player. And there was one evening where it was just the two of us playing. And someone came up to the organizer and was like, "Can you please turn the band down? They are too loud." And the organizer had to tell the dancer, "I'm sorry, but they are playing acoustic." "I'm sorry, there are no microphones on them." And playing with Marnin, maybe I'll talk a little bit about it later, but it is an experience and it is a magical roller coaster is my favorite way of describing playing with him, and worth checking out. And actually, I think like the biggest gig that kind of got me kind of inserted me into the English music fully was that that for some reason Martin and I and a cello player named McKinley James got hired for the Dance Flurry with Graham Christian Calling. And bless you, Graham. Thank you so much. And I think that was a magical moment. And I think we worked with Sharon as well. And it was just, it felt really good. And I felt finally, I was like, oh, maybe I am an English musician. This feels really, really good. And the rest is history. And that's kind of where I've been at. And I plan on doing this for the rest of my life. Yeah. So I think we've got a couple of just like little tiddly bit videos in between my questions that I just thought would be a fun thing to share. And a good chance for me to sip my tea.
Oh, good. And we are so lucky you're part of the scene. Folks were asking what year was that Pinewoods, and also the open, what was it, the Contra. So they were asking about when that was.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna make up a year, but it was around Labor Day. I think was around 2011 was really the first time that I English danced. I'm sure that's actually the very first time I English danced was 2011. And the Contra dance, well, this is now you can like guess my age, but I was in high school, in middle school and high school. 2002 to 2007 is kind of where I got my chops playing in Hawaii and visiting Glen Echo over the summers, and then moved to Boston in 2008 or 2009. Yeah. I was going to make people guess what the heck that tune was. But that's me, Amy Engelsberg, and Emily O'Brien doing a kazoo solo for Walpole Cottage. And just one of my favorite memories of, I think that's 2015 at Labor Day. And just kind of the fun energy that that camp had, especially with their English dancing. Just so much fun. Oh, and the next video is just a slight contrast, and also one of my favorite videos.
First couple set.
That's a hard one to not get emotional watching that. It was a very special week for me.
It's a wonderful video. What a great week. All right. Thing number 2. What am I even thinking about?
What even? I thought the second point was just maybe going through, well, what an evening of an English dance is like from the musician's perspective. And what goes on, the millions of little thoughts that happen and the processing that happens during an evening. Because it turns out it's a lot. If we like start at the very beginning, right before the gig or like a week before, usually this is, I think, not necessarily for dance weeks. I should reiterate this. This is kind of for your regular weekly local dance. Is that the caller is very kind. They will email you the list in advance. And sometimes callers will say, please take a look at this list. And if there's tunes that you really don't like, please let us know. And I actually really appreciate it. It's not very often that I will use that power. But it's a really nice thing to do, especially since like, or maybe like I can't play that tune for some reason. That it's very thoughtful. And I am a huge fan of the, oh, you can't really see it here, the ECD app, the English kind of companion, where you have the first two Barnes books and that you have the option to import all of your music. So my organizational mind loves being able to create this program where I know all of the tunes in order and I can do a quick run through of all of them. And like, as the millennial that I am, it's great not to carry a bunch of books with me. And so I love sitting down and going through and being able to create my list. And I also really like looking through that to be able to see what was the caller when they programmed this, what were their thoughts, right? Like if I see 3 dances in a row that are like the same tempo and 3 jigs or something like that, I just love being able to know what they're thinking for that particular evening. And then when you get there to the dance, especially if you don't know who you're playing with or you haven't played with them before, having a conversation in advance about what your expectations are, I think is a really important thing and maybe a little underrated. Because, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, in the Contra dance world, you generally play with your bandmates. And in ECD, there's a lot of times where you are this like thrown together band, which is very cool. But what that means is you might not know what their expectations are. So do you like rotating? Do you like playing, you're going to play like assigning who plays the melody each time, who likes to noodle, who doesn't like to noodle. And also where you sit is actually a thing that I like to think about because, I don't know, like the accordion, if they're a big right-hand accordion player, thinking about the spacing, but also hearing acoustically is I love, especially in those smaller spaces, the softer the monitor can be, the better. And then really focusing in what their acoustic sound is. And so being able to know I've got the piano on my right-hand side and I've got the accordion on my left hand or something like that. It's just, I love being able to think about that sonic balance that happens when you're in the hall. And so the other thing is like, especially like there are some dances that I might not know, and like watching the dancers or watching the walkthrough to me is crucial because that might actually determine how I reinterpret the tune. I might have watched a YouTube video of the dance, but the caller at that evening might do it a little bit differently, or you hear the tempo, and that again will completely change how I might interpret the song. One thing I have to mention, if you've ever played the Palo Alto English dance, Bill Jensen is the kind of the house piano player, and he's incredible. He and Bruce Hamilton have been working together for so long, and watching how Bill will do his noodling while Bruce is calling is like this almost beautiful musical cadence in itself. And the fact that Bill Jensen is not watching the dancers. The piano, the way that it's set, is actually not watching the dancers. And how it can be so done so well blows my mind. And it in itself is a musical thing. Because when you're doing or you're playing along the tune during the walkthrough, you're also kind of setting the mood for that dance, right? And I personally love that noodling because you're creating, again, that soundscape throughout the evening. And it just kind of helps the dancers get into the mood of the tune, whether or not it's happy, sad, fast, or slow. Bill, he's got eyes in the back of his head and he's listening It's exactly. He's listening to the footsteps, and he's listening to Bruce's like verbal cadences of when he's gonna stop. Whether it's a 4-bar phrase or a 6-bar phrase, he can just kind of hear it. It just give me shivers thinking about that, and that is true skill right there. What I also wanted to talk a little bit about was like what is going in my head while I'm actually playing. Sometimes you receive the music right at that moment. The caller or whatever, they had time for an extra one. They're like, oh, can we please do this one? Let me get it out of my briefcase. And they throw it on your music stand. First step, don't panic. It's going to be okay. You're in a judge-free zone. So taking a deep breath and not panicking is like step number 1. Step number 2 is kind of looking at the layout or the map of the tune. I will immediately look at the time signature, meaning is it a 3-2, 2-4, is it a jig, knowing what kind of dance it's going to be. The tempo, sometimes I write it in the top left-hand corner of the tune, or I will ask the caller actually to give some vague notion of the tempo. So when I sight read it in front of everyone, I'm like close. Knowing the key signature, sharps and flats, also a very good thing to know. And also checking out if there's any weird accidentals that might trip you up as well. If there's any weird bits. And then last, but maybe most importantly, is where the repeats are. And knowing the form of the tune, because sometimes they can be very deceptive. A, B, C, C, sure, why not? But just making sure that you know exactly where that is. And if you kind of make those mental notes before you play the tune, you are much more likely to succeed in doing that. So I will just kind of do this instant look at the tune before playing it. Even if it's a tune I know, sometimes it definitely doesn't hurt to take a look at that. Now, when I am playing, when the actual music is happening, I like to think about, this is a very weird analogy, but I like to think about myself like as a little bat, or like my hearing becomes immediately heightened, or you become hyper focused on what's happening. And it's this incredible headspace that I love going into, and I think that's why I love playing for dances so much. Is that I am very much attuned to what the people around me are playing, what my tone of my instrument is. Are the dancers enjoying themselves? Is the caller calm and relaxed? Sometimes when you're starting a dance, you like just the body language of the caller. They might not be able to have the time to communicate with the band that you're going too fast or too slow, but just seeing how they are interacting kind of gives me a sense of what's actually happening. And of course, watching the dance while you play. Where are the spaces? Where are they stopping and waiting? How is that okay? Where's the forward momentum of the tune? And that is something that is so fun to be able to do and match. The next thing that I wanted to talk about and maybe play you some examples of was like I like to call like the band in the box, right? When you're playing with people that you don't usually play with, what are some of the instant arranging things that I do on the spot? And it's kind of like my toolbox of musical ideas. And a lot of that, all of the things that I do more often than not are reflective on what the other musicians are doing. So if the piano player is playing loud and luscious and beautiful all over the piano, is that something that I'm going to copy and emulate? Am I just going to go to town with them and just make this full sound? Or am I going to step back and am I going to allow them to have that space to go free? And I'm going to maybe not play. Or if someone is playing lots of intricate counter melodies, am I going to do that or am I going to back off? And so, I don't know, I took this random tune, a tune that I absolutely love, How Great Is the Pleasure, and wanted to play you some examples of how varied just taking one line of music can be just by thinking about these, I don't want to say basic concepts, but these concepts of what you can do even with just this one line. So if I have, let me just make sure I'm in tune. 1 moment, please. Close enough for Zoom. So in my toolbox, I could be thinking about, okay, this is the time of the tune that I really want to be full. I'm deciding to play the melody, and I'm just gonna belt it out. And so I might do something like this. Or if I hear everyone kind of taking a breath and stepping back, I do the exact same melody. The exact melody, but has a completely different feel to it. Or one time I'd be like, I'm going to play lots of notes and see what happens. Or really sparse. So this is a Shaker hymn called "How Great Is the Pleasure," and the dance was written by Colin Hume. And I want to blame Graham Christian on this one as well for introducing this one to me. And so these are just kind of examples of things that I think about, especially when playing with, just playing with musicians in general. The other quick thing that I wanted to mention is the passion graph. And I love just thinking about the passion graph. And when you have a song and you know how many times through or roughly how long, I like to visualize sometimes about what that arc is going to look like. So for this tune, for example, How Great Is the Pleasure? Do we want to start nice and soft and smooth and then build and build and build, and at the very end, the last time through, we're going to be really strong? Or do I want to start really soft and somewhere in the middle, we're going to get really strong, and then towards the end, we're going to end right where we started? And I love thinking about this. And I think what's really cool about English dancing or playing with English musicians is that this can all be done on the spot. There's no prearranging, there's no discussions that have to be made. And that when you're so in tune with the other musicians, it happens. I don't want to say magically because we're thinking a lot, but when it works, it's so incredible. And that's one of the things that I love about playing English music. Is be able to do these instant arrangements because we're really, really listening to each other. Oh man, yeah, I'm just I really miss playing with people. So those are the things that I think about, when I'm playing, and I think I'll talk a little bit more about that toolbox in a little bit later. Oh yes, we have a video coming up. Here's your break. Here's my tea break. I love that video. Thank you, Dan, for filming that.
That's a great video. All right, thing number 3.
What?
Yes. Improv in the English world.
Yes, and this next topic actually will have a lot to do with what I just talked about, is playing with other people. But this is actually something that I learned from Julie Valamont when I was thrown into Ashoka Northern Week and teaching the English band. And all of a sudden had to become very proficient in learning and teaching other people to play English dancing. And she had this really lovely idea of teaching how to play for English dance just like you would teach an improv class. And I think, again, this really kind of builds on what I was talking about earlier. The rule number one in improv and learning how to do it is say yes. The rule of improvisation is to agree with the other musicians and say yes. If there's something happening musically, you go with it, right? Like, that is what you do. If the person sitting next to you has this lovely musical idea, you can't just be like, nah, I'm not really into that. Like, I'm going to do my own thing. It's just not going to sound as good. And that kind of leads into rule number 2 of saying yes and. So not only are you agreeing with what that musician is saying, but you're adding to it, right? And so if they're playing a melody, that might be, that's really cool. I'm going to play this counter melody on top of it. I'm going to fill in those spaces, ba-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. I'm going to go over here and go ba-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo, or something like that, that I'm going to enhance what they're doing. We're all on the same team. But the other thing is saying yes, and most importantly, that sometimes might mean actually saying less. And a lot of times in English music, I find that less is more. Space is a beautiful thing in English music. And with lots of these tunes, we have that time, we have that space to let the tune breathe. And so you don't want it to be dense all the time. And so when you have musicians on stage, when you have 2, 3, 4 musicians on stage, you have all of these musical possibilities. And so sometimes your job is to not play. It's kind of, that was not an easy thing for me to learn, might I add, coming from the Contra dance world and being in a band where I was the only melody player. It took me a while to be like, oh, I don't have to play all the time. There's that famous story. I don't know if it was Kate Barnes playing the piano, but someone came up to her and they're like, I love it when you don't play. And it's like, they can't miss you if you're still there. So I think that is very, very important. The other thing is keeping, I don't know if this is slightly controversial, but I enjoy not knowing who's playing the melody next. I think it's tradition, or there's a lot of organizations or musicians where based on where you're sitting will determine, okay, we're going to take turns playing the tune. But if you're going to play a tune, and you don't know exactly how many times through, I love not knowing. I don't know if that makes me sick or whatnot, but if, Anna Patton's playing this amazing clarinet solo and she's playing it one time through, but she's still going for it, I'm not going to come in and be like, excuse me, it's my turn. Sometimes having someone playing the melody twice is great. Sometimes me not playing 2 times through is awesome. Yeah, exactly. So there's or when no one plays the melody, that's also okay. I love that spontaneity about English dancing and playing for it, which makes it so fun. And again, it kind of makes you really focused. You can't tune out because you're like, oh, I'm not playing the melody this time, and I know the next time I'm not going to play it. Again, being that hyper focused on what's happening, I think just adds to the spiciness of playing for it, which I love. The next rule of improv is make statements. And so I've been talking a lot about, listening and adjusting to what everyone's playing. But if I'm playing the melody and I'm I'm going to do this, I'm going to take full force of it, I have faith in my musicians around me that they're going to follow me. And so not being shy about taking that and taking that lead, especially when I'm playing the melody. And then rule number 4 is there are no mistakes. This is the biggest one for me to to deal with. But no, there are no mistakes. My favorite story is my bandmate Amy Engelsberg, who plays piano. Like in the A1, if she plays a wrong chord in the second measure, the A2, she's going to play that exact same chord. I meant it. I absolutely playing like you mean it and playing with intention and being confident, I think is so important. And if you, I think the dancers will also notice, and just playing with meaning and intention goes a long way, long way. There's a new rule that I'm going to add, maybe not necessarily with improv, but just playing in general and improvising is breathing and relaxing and just being okay with it and just going it as is. I've been taking weekly Shanos dancing classes with this amazing dancer named Rebecca McGowan. I'm pretty sure every other word out of her mouth is breathe. And realizing how important it is and being relaxed. Because when you're tense, when you're playing, when you're being tense, the tempos tend to perhaps might have the tendency of speeding up, or if it's hard, so our bodies just have this natural tendency of tensing up, and we forget that. And so when you're finished on your playing, you're like, why does everything hurt? And you don't want to sound frantic. When you're playing these fast tunes, you don't want to give the appearance that it's difficult, and that the more you can relax and take deep breaths, it goes a long way. And you can take that, the panic out of your mind. The more you can take that part of your brain away, the more brain space you have to actually concentrate on what you're doing. And so improvising is a scary word. But like what I mentioned before, improvising can just mean playing less, giving more space, not playing with a little bit more intensity, playing an accidental note you didn't mean to. That's all improvising. And so you don't have to be John Coltrane in order to improvise for English dance. As it turns out, it's okay. So those are my thoughts. The next video I think I would love to share with you guys this is also going to make me very sad and maybe slightly emotional, but this was the last English dance that I did, was at Winter Dreams with Graham Christian Calling. And this was a particularly magical experience because I got to play with one of my favorite musicians, Christopher Jacoby and Charlie Hancock. And we took this gig as an opportunity to actually rehearse. I'm talking about how great it is to be able to do all of these things on the spot, but we really decided to take this gig and what would it be like to actually rehearse and arrange as a band. And it had a beautiful outcome, in my opinion. And it was a really, really fun project to work on. And I mean, I guess I'm glad that it was my last gig for English because it was a particularly special one. And so I'd just love to play you a little bit of this one.
Circle right halfway. Set right and left. Circle right halfway. One was cast down, two's made up. Two-hand turn halfway. Two's cast down, one's made up. Two-hand turn halfway. Long back to back. Changes right to partner. Two-hand turn halfway, open out facing up. Two's cast, one's cross. One's lead down, two's up the side, around the next. Set right and left.
Such a gorgeous tune.
It was a great band, great night.
I was trying really hard to make sure that not every video of mine had Graham Christian in it. I was going through all these videos. I was like, oh, he's in all of them.
That's okay. We love Graham. All right, thing number 4. What's the difference anyways? Playing for Contra versus English.
Oh, yeah. I have to say, Contra dance in English, there are things about each one that satisfy different parts of my brain, and I absolutely love being able to do both of them. I think in the contra dance world, like there's a high energy and tempo that's kind of expected and the norm. And sometimes in English, I get a little self-conscious about that because I think a lot of people do know me as a contra dance musician. And so I kind of, I'm sensitive about, you know, not being completely over the top all the time. And reading the audience and kind of the mood or the culture of the particular group, I think is really important. And I think in contra dance, I don't ever think about that. That's just not part of what I have to say. That being said, though, one of my favorite memories is when the Freemasons were first getting started, we had Lisa Greenleaf do like a band workshop. We're like, hey Lisa, can you come over and tell us what we're doing wrong? Or just we wanted her feedback as a band, which was so essential and was incredible. And one of the things I remember the most is she's like, you have to listen to this band called Pie Wacket. And Pie Wacket, I wish I had like just like send a clip or whatever, but check them out. Pie Wacket turns out to be an English band from the 80s. And it was a record that she had digitally transferred. And I've listened to that so many times. And how, in fact, you can play English tunes totally rocking out with cheesy synths all over the place, saxophones, you name it. It was just this like amazing 80s pop synth English band called Pie Wacket. Yeah, Linda spelled it correctly in the chat, and they're just so much fun. And I was like, I didn't know English could sound like that, and it was like very eye-opening to me. And just kind of being more comfortable about that you can be high energy, and sometimes you really want to be high energy. So that being said, though, the really cool thing about English is that you don't always have to play 120 BPM all the time. And as someone who plays a lot of contra dancing, it is a huge relief. I remember when I first started playing, 3-2 scared the crap out of me. I was like counting in my head all the time. I play waltzes like nobody's business, but for some reason, counting 1, 2, 3 versus 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, just like scared me. It scared me. So that took that took some time I'm doing. And I think I also mentioned this of just English dancing, you're allowed to have space. And I have the brain space power to be able to actually think about the tone of my instrument. Like, is this long note? Does this actually sound good? What happens if I push my bow down a little bit or speed up the bow pressure? What happens if a little bit of vibrato? Or what happens if I do slow vibrato? All of those things I don't have time to think about in contra dance. And I love being able to take those skills that I learned as a classical musician and to be able to apply it and be, and be differently musical about it, I guess. The other thing, and I think I've been talking about this a lot, was just the band versus individual musicians. Is that for contra dances, I mainly play with my bandmates. They're like family to me. I've picked them. They are awesome, and we have arrangements, and we know what we're gonna play. And that's an incredible feeling. You trust them musically. And you just have this thing that you've had for a long time. And in English, like usually it's with pickup bands, and it can lead to so many new musical adventures. I love playing with a new musician that I've never played before. Like, it's a new adventure. I have no idea where they're going to take me. And I love being able to adjust my playing to what the other person is doing. And that is really important to me. And just doing something different. I think we get like kind of stuck in our box of how I play. And I always play the tune this way. But again, being forced to play with people and getting out of your comfort zone can be absolutely magical. And I really love it. And also when you do week-long camps, starting the week with musicians that you didn't quite, know musically. And then when you play with them every single day and developing that relationship. And by the end, it feels incredible. I remember every morning at Heydays playing for Brooke Friendly's class with Chip Prince. And it was just the two of us. And it was like a 9 a.m. class. And surprise, surprise, I'm not a morning person. But I really looked forward to that class because we were sight reading the whole time. And just the two of us just seeing what happens. And it was so much fun. And that's something that I really think is special and unique in English music. Sight reading also, being able to sight read on the spot. One of I had this dawn on me moments was at Noodling Assembly a couple of years ago with Andrew Shaw calling, and he would just throw music at us, just play this, just play this. And I just remember being like, I'm sight reading in front of 100 people. I don't know this tune. And these, I'm like, we're just going to see what happens. And I can't, what other genre of music has this takticular expectation of just here, perform it, go, but also being okay with it. And I think I mentioned it before, is just they're going to be okay with it. I'm not I might crash and burn. I hope that I usually don't, but they're going to be okay with it. And just feeling supported in the community is big. And again, being vulnerable in those positions and knowing that it's going to be okay. And then I will get the tune. Even if I didn't sight read it perfectly in front of everyone, I know I will have another chance. And again, the listening concept, you just listen a little bit differently in English, and I really love that. And I think the other thing is in Contra Dance, I really do enjoy looking at a Contra Dance card and being able to pick a dance that matches that. I think that is a really fun thing to do. And I love that part about Contra Dance, and that you are helpfully in charge not only of, that one set passion graph, but you can help decide the passion graph for the entire evening. And I really enjoy thinking about the dancer's experience. And so I do miss that in English dancing. But again, trusting that the caller knows the crowd and the audience, and that they're going to figure out what that evening is going to look like. And then ideally, the tune does obviously match the dance. You don't have to worry about whether or not that's going to be the case. There's always this perennial question of, can you get away with playing English tunes in a Contra Dance? And maybe I'll ask that question to folks at the after talks. I love talking about this. I remember the first time Larry and I played at Halsey Manor, it was a Contra Dance week, but it was also an English week at the same time. And it kind of blew my mind that English dancing and Contra dancing in this particular week were interchangeable. They weren't okay, we're going to do an English dance now, or okay, we're going to do a Contra dance now. That it was just all kind of jumbled up, and made me rethink the idea of keeping English and Contra dance separated. And so I would love to talk more about that maybe later. But yeah, I think maybe we'll go ahead and play the last video I have for you guys. Speaking of high energy English dancing. I just had to throw that video in.
I love that video. All right. Thing number 5. So you want to play for ECD.
So you want to play. I wanted to take this last point and maybe just talk about the direction of ECD music and where it's going. I don't know if this is me being selfish, but I would love to see more young people playing English music. Obviously I love playing with the people I do, but it would just be nice to see. And I think it's really cool that CDNY has a mentorship program for both musicians and for callers. One of my best friends, Alex Daislabi, went through that calling program, and it was so cool that that exists. And I would love to see those kinds of things happening a little bit more. I'm a firm believer that musicians are a core and essential part of our dance community. I mean, dancers obviously are, but, and again, I might be biased here, but and young people, I'm not saying that their dancers are fickle, but young musicians, we have this invested energy in playing, right? I have spent a couple of years playing, and that I'm not going to go anywhere. I have put this time and energy into playing music, and it would be so great to be able to see that happen. And the question is like, well, how do we even get young people interested in this? And I don't have like a magic answer to it, because I think I'm a unique situation. But I do have to say that it was at Pinewoods 2018 that Morgan Crispin and Corey Walters headed up just an English tune jam session. And that was one of my highlights of the week, is every day at Porch and Rail, before lunch and dinner, having a couple of drinks before eating, and just playing tunes. No sheet music, no nothing, and just playing tunes. And also playing tunes that weren't like so ridiculously difficult that you couldn't pick up by ear, that we were very intentional about playing approachable tunes. And it was so much fun. And I know pre-pandemic that they were running an English tune jam session out in Greenfield. And I think that is an organic way of bringing musicians into playing. Because I mean, I can see maybe sitting around, let's like go through and read tunes together on the sheet music, but there was just something so nice about just being able to play tunes casually. I just picked this one up off of this one recording and I'm going to play it. And that was just really fun. So I wish there was some magic wand that I could convince musicians to be able to do that. But that might be one way. That might be one way of doing it. I know YDW and Swing Into Summer, they are very intentional about having English dances as part of their mission statement. And I know YDW every year, that's Youth Dance Weekend. YDW, they have that have like, it's like open band, open collar, but like you pick a band, or you can pick your musicians, and then you practice, or you get given the tunes and you practice, and then you play for the dances. And that's for English and for Contra dance. And so I know that they're trying, but that's once a year, right? And so I would love to be able to explore that more. And I wish I had the right answer. And there are other things that you kind of have to know to play for English dances, right? Some basic skills theory wise, being able to read chords and knowing what that means. I don't know anything about it, but like basic Baroque ornamentation, right? There's certain stylistic things that you can do with the tunes that don't hurt to know. And being able to read music is a really big thing. And I don't know if that's a big hurdle for musicians who are interested in getting to do English. And I think it would be a hard thing to try to change, culturally, being like, okay, we're going to give the band a month in advance to learn the tunes by ear. That's a lot. There's a lot of tunes in the English repertoire. And so I don't see that going anywhere, but it's not impossible. So those are kind of the things that are really interesting to think about. if you are interested in learning for ECD and kind of exploring being able to bring more young people into it. Janine just mentioned you need a Cliff Top for English music. Cliff Top is just like a week-long, huge, festival of drinking and playing tunes with your friends. And that'd be so much fun. And I know that exists in England. Sidmouth is like the place to go, and that exists. And I'd just be really curious to be able to bring that kind of culture and that idea. I know Alex Cumming has done such an incredible job of kind of introducing that into the ECD world here in America, and I look up to him tremendously for that, and he is really doing his best to do that. But yeah, with that being said, I thought I would just end this with just showing you some cheesy pictures. And hopefully I won't start getting too emotional over this. But this is me and Karen at New London 2019. We played together for like 6 hours a day. It was so incredible. And rumor has it is that we'll be back in 2022. Yep, there we are. This is heydays. And whew, man, so many memories. We were I don't want to say footless band. We were the shoeless band. And this was at New London with Shira and Karen again. That's Larry and I actually in London. Ali Messer is an incredible accordion player who lives in London, who really helped us get some gigs over there. And that's us playing at a gorgeous, gorgeous church someplace in London. But it was a really fun week. And I think that was the same year that we played at Halsey. For that Contra Dance Week. Pinewoods, yeah. We're having a very deep intellectual conversation, as you can see. And so, yeah, that's my band, Wake Up Robin. I love those guys. And that was our, first promo shot. I think that was taken in Bolinas during, can't remember which dance weekend that was. But we were so young and so innocent. Oh, that's not a picture. That's me.
Oh my gosh, this was great. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Thank you, Audrey.
My
and
pleasure.
We are going to post a whole bunch of links and upcoming events and classes and all sorts of other things with Audrey in the chat box. So if you cannot grab things from the chat box, don't worry, because we do have a Dropbox and we are getting the saved chats into that Dropbox, so you'll have a place to go. So and grab that. We always ask dancers, what is your favorite dance? And we always ask musicians, what's your favorite tune? What tune brings you great joy when you hear it, play it? So what are your answers?
Yeah, so my favorite dances are two very contrasting ones. Is the tune and the dance Old Wife Behind the Fire. It has so much energy without being extremely notey and annoying. And just that punchy mixolydian in your face, and the dance has the perfect momentum to go with that. And that's one of the few tunes that I'll sneak into playing for a contra dance that I think works really well for contra dances as well. The second one that came to mind when you asked this question is the tune in the dance, the Moonflower, the Susan Kever and Rachel Bell. And particularly, playing it every single time is amazing, but I feel like I had my first experience. I was actually dancing, and this was at Pinewoods, one evening dance where I was dancing, and I had that moment that I feel like we've all had where I was like, everything is literally perfect. Everything. This is why we do this. Just the dance, the music, the tunes, the evening. It was just that magic moment. And I remember dancing, and I was like, I'm going to remember this forever. Whew. And just that, it was just magical. And I can't wait to do that again. So I blame Rachel and Susan on that one.
We definitely know that feeling. That's, yeah. Completely relate.
I think.
Oh, thank you. And what do you drink? Don't answer if it's water. What are you drinking in that teacup?
Or if it's vodka, right?
Yeah, well, that's okay. We don't talk about those teas.
No, actually, this is a good question. So I'm drinking actually berries tea, and I know that that is an Irish tea, but I live with an Irish musician, and so that is the black tea that we have. However, for my birthday, I decided to have cream tea, and so I learned how to make scones. I ordered I ordered clotted cream from Devon, um, which you can get shipped as it turns out. Made myself some strawberry preserve and drank a lot of berries tea. So that was really fun to do.
That sounds wonderful. And when next you come up, we're going to take you out to tea up here too.
I would love
Well, let's move on with the wrap up stuff so we can get into the after talk, because there is a lot of things to talk about. Thank you, Audrey Knuth, for being on our show so much. It's been really great. And thank you to our 5 Things team, Lindsay Verbal, and in the background, Reed Wilson on Zoom, Larry Hansen on Facebook, and our helpers, Kara King and Dan Vilter. You can watch all our past 5 Things web chats, and you will find the link now on our Tuesday web chat page on our website. We started in March 2020. Last week was our anniversary, and thank you for all the shout outs and love that we've been getting from everybody. We are posting the link to that page where you can watch the past episodes. Also, check there in case you had requests. We might have had those people on. We get a lot of requests for people who we have already had on. After talks are not publicly available. However, if you ask, we will send you a link to them. So just email us. And a big thank you to everybody who's been sending in donations. We really appreciate it. It has certainly helped. There are operational expenses and it makes a big difference. And hey, we still have our thing, and we're going to post about that in the chat box if you don't already know about it, and you will be getting yours, Audrey. We are posting the after talk link and also the link to the Dropbox folder where the 5 Things downloads are. I have not gotten to everyone's past chat, but all the more recent ones are there. If you're looking for one in particular, just send me an email and I'll make sure it gets to you. Next week, this is by attendee request. Coming Tuesday, April 6th, we have Jim Morrison. We're very excited about that. Everybody went wild in the chat with saying 1 week, yes, we should have him on, and he's coming on next week. On Thursdays, if you're not busy, join us at 5 p.m. Pacific and for tea time. Speaking of tea, it's a social hour. It's just a lot of friends hanging out, having tea together and chatting about whatever. Join our mailing list and you will find out about all these different things. If you have events to post, please post them now for everyone, whether you're on Facebook or Zoom, and we will surely spread the word. For donations, support Audrey's music and the other work she does in our community by donating directly to Audrey Knuth. The PayPal is being listed, the Venmo is being listed. Write us if you want an email, a mailing address. The exit tune, I hope Jackie's out there listening. It's Yuma's. It's named after Jackie's cat. No, not a kid. But it's another fabulous Amy Engelsberg tune with the band Wake Up Robin. We'll see you all in 2 minutes. However, let me just say once again, buy on Bandcamp this Friday, First Fridays. That is the day you want to buy on there. And we'll see you all in 2 minutes.